Recently, I made a survey of various guts and Blackpowder related questions. It got 811 responses as of making this video, and I'm quite happy with that. In future updates, I'd like to make more of these surveys for sure. Now then, here's a rundown of the results. On this question, 79% of respondents answered objective, and about 12% answered endless, with the remainders being split between holdout and all the custom server modes like Siege. I'm not really surprised by this, but it will mostly only be interesting in comparison to the later questions' results. At 21%, Roscoff takes the lead here. I assume Roscoff leads most of these map-related questions due to the recency of the map, but it is certainly a high-quality map regardless. In second is San Sebastian with about 19% of the vote, then Cobb at 16%, Paris at 15%, Leipzig at 10%, and Copenhagen at 9%. Berzina and Verdahu each take up a tiny amount of the vote here, at about 4% each. I found these results quite shocking myself. In first, with almost 29%, is Hougoumont. In second, by only a small percentage, is Tyrolean Village, and then in third, which is my personal favorite, is the firm with only 20%. At 15%, we have people expressing that they miss Verdahu Endless, which really was a very fun Endless map, and then in last, La Haye with 9%. Personally, I think La Firme offers a far greater variety of gameplay above all the other Endless maps, and I'm pretty shocked that Tyrol got 26%. Personally, I just do not enjoy that map's gameplay. In first is, expectedly, Line Infantry, with 28% of players favoring it. Second is Officer, with 23% of players preferring it, and in third and fourth is Sapper then Seaman, with 14 and 13% respectively. Surgeon in fifth with 8%, then Musician and Chaplain were pretty much tied at 7% of players favoring them. Interestingly with these results, what I find is that, assuming this is a 20 out of 20 player team, it doesn't create the most unbalanced team ever. 5 to 6 Line Infantry, 4 Officers, 2 Surgeons, 2 Musicians, 2 to 3 Sappers, and 2 to 3 Seamen, and then of course 1 Chaplain, is a pretty balanced setup for the most part in casual. This was a pretty neat question. Some people gave pretty elaborate and very specific answers, blaming backlining as a reason why they distrust this measurement of skill, but 65% of people simply said sometimes, which I agree with. 12% of players said that they thought that was quite stupid, and 13% said that they always considered skill by these metrics. I think it is useful to take into account how much you contribute to your team by how many hours you've played, but many people play support classes or are no good in a specific way like saves. It's useful, but I would never center everything on kills, and I advise you don't either. 82% of respondents said yes, and 18% said no. I am curious if the people who said no are the same as the people who think that KDR is never reflective of skill, or if they are the ones with 100 KDR in the first place. I myself think if you got 80 to 120 KDR, you're doing a fine job supporting your team. 62% said yes, 34%, probably the most realistic responders, said they are often about equal, and 4% said they were worse. I wonder if this percentage is skewed by how often people complain about how bad they think their team is, but I think it'd be more accurate if, say, 40% of players responding said yes and about 50% said they were equal. People very much like the new infection, with 70% of respondents answering 1 or 2, and 20% answering 3. Only about 9% said that they don't like the new infection system. Personally, I voted 2, since I like everything except the new visual effects. I find the blood in the corner of the screen a little bit cheesy or obnoxious. I would agree with no, or depends. Not quite sure, since I find weapons like the knock really fun, even if it is moderately finickier or worse than the blunderbuss. But the hand axe, oh man, it's super fun. But it just pales in comparison to even just the saber, not even counting the heavy saber. This question got some mediocre answers, really. I suppose that's fine, but oh well. Here's my 5 that I selected to read, since they're actually somewhat worth discussing. Response number 116. The game is too dark. I don't care if it's visually accurate, it's annoying to be almost unable to see anything in first person on, say, Call Blast because of the sheer darkness. Lighting can be dark, but pitch black just makes it annoying to play sometimes. In settings, you can turn off shadows, which helps on most objective maps, even with max graphics. I do agree on Hougoumont though. It's super dark in some parts of the interior where it just doesn't really make sense to me. Response 185. Cosmetic packs are filled with sloppy cosmetics and page regiment's quality is simply greedy. No clue what this person is saying. The page regiment's quality is very good and worth the price of a mere 150 Robux per pack. The cosmetics, I guess the old ones, can look a little odd, but Burned Man, the locket, gloves, they're very cool cosmetics and they always look great. Response number 219. Line infantry are the least useful class because they don't have any ability that helps the team as a whole. Officer Charge. They are the only class to fully benefit from it, and it totally clears. Additionally, weapons like the Pike, Heavy Saber, and Hand Axe make Line Infantry a super good generalist for outputting damage. And additionally, the guns that Line Infantry have are amazing for picking bombs and igniters off. Response 593. The Exorcism Crucifix is horrible compared to the normal one. Don't agree at all, aside from endless above a wave such as, say, 60. It's decent for saves, the DPS helps, a few points of damage per second for an infinite amount of zombies has tons of potential, and the slowing effect is super rad. Response number 5. I believe that the hate on the Ottomans is overdone, and they aren't an outlandish idea. Not suggesting them, but after doing research on them, I'd say they could work. It'd just be a lot of efforts in terms of modeling and equipment. I agree. I'd like to see the developers do more with certain countries, like Austria or England first, but it'd be really cool to see the Ottoman Empire in some form. I think this question gives light to how people like Endless in comparison to Objective. Most answers are around 3 or 4, or I'll play it, but not more than Objective. Given that 6 is I only play Endless, and 1 is I only play Objective or Holdout, I think Endless is more liked than some lead you to believe, but usually not more than Objective. Not much to say about this, except that the top 4 answers were probably Mr. Flame, myself, Kevuz, then New Henry 12. I suppose this is a good part to mention that GNB now has a speedrun.com page. I've linked it in the description. Often was at 38%, all the time at 20%, and then more than most and sometimes at about 16% each. Very few people who responded said almost never play, and I got some interesting responses for the other option.